Before you continue watching this video, please pause right now and read this small paragraph and try to decipher what's going on in this example. So it's telling us that there's an urn with 5 red balls and 7 gray balls. And it says we're gonna take 2 balls out of the urn, one after the other. So we're gonna pick one out, then take another one out without replacement. So what does that mean? That means that after you take the first ball out of the urn, you're not gonna put it back in. You're just gonna look at it and keep it in your hand, then pick the other ball out of the urn. The question here is to find some probabilities. But before we do that, they gave us some definitions. They said, let S denote the sample space of all the possible choices of the 2 balls from the urn. In this case, they want us to call B1 the event that the first ball is red, and B2 that the event that the second ball is red. So that means that B1 complement means the event that the first ball was not red, so you chose a gray ball, and the B2 complement is the event that the second ball is not red, so that means you picked a gray ball. So this is what we have going on so far. There were 5 red balls at the start, and there were 7 gray balls. So that's what I'm doing over here by doing 5 red and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gray balls. And so the total at the beginning of the experiment is 12 balls. Now I'm gonna pick one. It could be either red or it could be gray. Depending on which one I pick, I'm gonna have some number of red balls left versus some number of gray balls. But I know that the total of the balls is gonna be 11. And then I choose another ball, which means that the total is gonna decrease to 10. So for example, if I pick the white ball on the first try, what's my probability of doing that? Well, in order to pick a white ball on the first, in order to pick a red ball on the first try, what I have to do is I have to select one of these 5 ones out of the total of 12. So I have to select one of the 5 out of the 12. And what's the probability that I don't pick the white ball on the first try? So in other terms, what's the probability I end up picking the gray ball on the first choice, on the first try? Well, there are 7 of those and a total of 12 balls in total. So now let's take a look at the probability of having the second ball be red, given that you already chose a red ball on the first try. So what's the probability of choosing a red ball on the second time when you already have chosen a red ball on the first try? So since I chose the red ball on the first try, that means I have now red balls -1. So there's 5 to begin with. I took 1 out because I chose it on the first try. Now I have 4 red balls left, and the total is 11 balls in the pile. What about the probability of choosing a gray ball, given that I already chose a red ball? So in that case, if I already chose a red ball, that means there's 4 red balls left, but still a complete set of 7 gray balls. So the total there is going to be 7 out of 11. And so far we haven't really answered any of the questions they asked us. We're just messing around with the numbers, just trying to figure out, what's going on here and how we can understand the situation that we're in. So now, since we know how the whole situation works, let's take a look at the first question they asked. What's the probability that both balls are red? So in other terms, I'm looking for the probability of ball 1 being red and ball 2 being red. So B1 and B2. So how does this happen? Well, for this to happen, I need to find first a red ball on the first try. Then I have to find a second ball that is red, given that I already chose the red one to begin with. So in other terms, the probability of choosing a ball 1 that is red is 5/12. And the probability of choosing ball 2 to be red, given that ball 1 is already red, that's 4 out of 11. And the total right there will be 20 divided by 132. So that pretty much answers the first question, where the 2 balls are basically both red. Now, the next question is, what's the probability that the first ball is red and the second one is not red? So using my language, using the symbols that we decided, this means that we're looking for the probability of B1 and B2 complement. So basically you chose a red ball on the first try and you chose a gray ball on the second try. So how does this work? How is it going to happen? Well, for this to happen, I need to first pick the red ball. Then I have to pick a a gray ball, given that I already have in my hand a red ball. And the probabilities are the following. For PB1, that's 5 out of 12 again. and PB2 complement B1, that's 7 out of 11. So we end up with 35 over 132. We can continue doing the same thing for the rest of the question, but it's sometimes a little bit easier to make a table or to make a diagram or one of these probability trees to figure out what the probabilities are. It's a little bit faster than having to do everything mentally. So this tree pretty much summarizes what we kind of said already. The probability of having a red ball on the first try is 5 out of 12. The probability of not choosing that or picking, in other terms, the gray ball is 7 out of 12 on the first try. Now, if you already chose a red ball, then the second time you do the experiment, you have 11 balls left. That's why you're seeing the denominators of 11. And if you choose the red ball, that could happen in 4 out of 11 possible ways. Whereas to choose the gray ball, that's going to be 7 out of 11 possible different ways. And so this is the event of having a red ball on the first try and a red ball on the second try. And we said that the answer is going to be 5 over 12 multiplied with 4 out of 11. So it's just grab these numbers and multiply them, and that's how you get the probability. We'll find the decimal version or the number in a second. What about this second version down here? To calculate the probability of having a red ball on the first try and not a red ball on the second try, the probability there is 5 out of 12 times 7 out of 11. And we already calculated both of these, and we got 20 over 132 for the first one and 35 out of 132 for the second one. So those are the answers to the questions that we have so far answered. Now, what about down here? In this bottom diagram, we have a gray ball that was chosen first, followed by a choice of a red ball on the second try. And so that probability is going to be 7 out of 12 multiplied by 5 out of 11. And the answer there is going to be, again, 35 over 132. And finally, the last tree diagram, 7 over 12 multiplied by 6 over 11. So what happened here is we chose a gray ball at the start on the first try, and we also chose a gray ball on the second experiment, on the second pull. And the probability there is 7 over 12 multiplied by 6 over 11. So again, this is going to be 42 divided by 132. So now, given this tree that we just designed, we can go back and answer all the questions that they wanted us very, very quickly. So the probability that both balls are red, that's going to be this first choice, which is 20 over 132. The probability that the first ball is red and the second one is not red, first ball is red, second one is not red. That's basically this question right here. And that's 35 over 132. So now let's take a look at the next one. What's the probability that the first ball is not red and the second ball is red? So ball 1 is not red, ball 2 is red. Turns out that that one was 35 over 132. And finally, the last question here is, what's the probability that neither ball is red? So the probability that neither ball is red, that means we got a gray ball on the first pull and a gray ball on the second pull. So that means B2 complement, B1 complement, and they both happened. In that case, the answer is going to be 42 over 132. So seeing the tree makes it a little bit easier to find the answers.